Welcome to the Zoom meeting. Assalamu alaikum. The Yellow team is trying to lead this meeting. Thank you so much. And Dr. Ryan, if you have a minute, you can take it from here. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. My name is Dr. Ryan. I'm the Yellow team leader for this week. We have our first presentation. It's on frailty, and it's going to be presented by Dr. Nada. So Dr. Nada, whenever you're ready, please share your screen. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. I will start. Hi there, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes, your voice is perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. So today we're going to discuss the topic of frailty. First of all, we have the objectives to know and understand why frailty is considered a clinical syndrome, clinical manifestations of frailty, and then adverse outcomes that are common in frail patients and most effective approaches to preventing it. And last of all, we're going to discuss the principles of caring for frail patients. Okay, so the topics are evidence-based findings, what is the cause, the assessment, management, and finally the prevention. Okay, so we're going to start with the standards for evidence. This is like just to understand if we see any SOE, this is like means standard of evidence. So first of all, we have rating A, B, C, D. A is for consistent and good quality patient-oriented evidence. It's for large cohort studies, for risk factors and prognosis, and for randomized controlled trials for diagnosis and treatment. B is somewhat inconsistent or limited quality patient-oriented evidence, which is like smaller or single cohort studies for risk factors and prognosis, and the same for randomized controlled trials. C is for very inconsistent or very limited patient-oriented evidence. And this is for single small cohort studies for risk factors and prognosis, single small cohort study, or randomized controlled trial. And lastly, we have the D, which is the unstudied common practice or opinion, and this is for no evidence. So we're going to start. What's the core concept of frailty? First of all, frail older adults are at high risk for stressors such as extreme of heat or cold, acute infection and injury. So these patients would have delayed recovery from illness or fall, develop greater functional impairment, including becoming disabled or dependent, and be hospitalized with worse outcomes once hospitalized and up to death. So this is why we have to diagnose this patient, which would be a frail patient. Frailty is the clinical observed to be a chronic progressive condition with a spectrum of severity. We have the most severe for a frail patient would be irreversible pre-death phase with a high mortality, and then the earlier ones may be responsive to treatment, either to prevent or ameliorate the clinical manifestations of frailty. So we have two types of frailty. First of all, we have primary and secondary. Primary is mainly due to intrinsic aging process. As for secondary, it's mainly secondary to a disease, secondary to comorbidities, so it's mainly due to end stage of several like chronic diseases, cancer associated with inflammation and wasting, heart failure, COPD, and so on. So the concept of frailty and vulnerability. So these patients are more vulnerable to adverse outcomes, which may be mostly likely manifest in the face of stressors because they don't have the reservoir to be able to like deal with the stressors. Regardless of course, those who are frail have decreased reserves, as we said, with which to compensate for or recover from stressors. The aggregate loss of physiological function is the process thought to underlie the high risk for adverse outcomes in this patient. And that's why there's an emerging research agenda focusing on identifying this patient with vulnerable physiological status before frailty becomes clinically apparent. So we want to diagnose it before if it's even clinically apparent to decrease these side effects or consequences later on. So the conceptions of frailty is the outcome of a number of likely unrelated abnormal health conditions. So this patient might be like multi-morbid state, and this would increase the risk of mortality. The number of conditions predict this vulnerability. So the important point is the number of conditions. The other point is frailty is a distinct physiological process resulting from dysregulation of multiple physiological systems. So many of these systems interact with each other, contributing to the clinical manifestations. The aggregate impact of too many dysregulated systems is a decreased ability maintain the homeostasis in the face of stressors, resulting in vulnerability to adverse outcomes. And this is why we have a clinical phenotype in etiology, which would be due to the dysregulated energetics, and this is what we're going to discuss. So now, frail as a physiological process. So according to the conception of frailty as a distinct physiological process, its clinical manifestations are seen in strength, balance, motor processing, nutrition, endurance, physical activity and mobility, and possibly cognition. A phenotype has been developed and validated that links all of them except for the last one. So this is the phenotype as you see it here. This phenotype is based on the hypothesis that the clinical presentation of frailty results from a vicious cycle of dysregulated energetics, leading to decrease in muscle mass, which is sarcopenia, exercise intolerance, slowed motor performance, decreased physical activity, inadequate nutritional intake, even when physiological activity is low. And the later two result in further sarcopenia, and when nutritional intake is severely inadequate, weight loss might be occurring as well. Here we want to diagnose this frailty, so we need a criteria for it. So we have 5 of them, 5 characteristics. If we see 3 of them, then this is specific for frailty. First of all, we have the weight loss, which means lost more than 10 pounds unintentionally. The important point is unintentionally, that's here. Exhaustion, felt that everything I did in the last week was an effort or could not get going in the last week. Slowed, which is like walking 15 feet, and this differs according to like the height of the person. Low activity level, less than 270 kilocalories of physical expenditure on 18 item activity, and these 18 items are like walking for exercise, mowing the lawn, raking the lawn, gardening, hiking, and so on. Weakness, which is the grip strength of the dominant hand, and this differs according to the BMI of the patient. So if we see 3 or more of these characteristics, then we can say this patient is frail. Frailty as a physiological process, so the last thing we're going to say here is research has shown that this definition of frailty is consistent with that of a clinical syndrome that is primarily chronic and progressive. So it's chronic and progressive in these patients. Early stages predict progression to more severe frailty, but frailty can improve, and this is why we're going to discuss later on the management and the prevention. Early stages are likely most amenable to intervention. Earliest presentation tend to be weakness, slowed walking speed, or decreased physical activity. Okay, so we said before that there are 2 types, primary frailty, and we have secondary frailty. So we're going to discuss primary. Primary, as we said before, it's age-related. Sarcopenia is a central component of the frailty and key predictor of the other clinical manifestations. So the predictors of sarcopenia include anabolic factors such as testosterone, IGF-1, amount of physical activity, nutritional intake, and age itself. As we said, it's an age process. The precipitant of the clinical manifestation of frailty might be aging-associated dysregulation of inflammation, decreased immune function, anemia, increased insulin resistance to levels of DHEA, IGF-1, sarcopenia, energy, and so on. The number of abnormal systems is a strong predictor of frailty than one abnormal system. As we said before, the number is the important point. There is evidence for interaction between abnormal systems with synergically increased frailty risk. So here we're going to say, as you can see, there is a connection between clinical presentation, physiological dysregulation, and cellular function and molecular genetic characteristics. Research indicates that the vulnerability and the clinical presentation of the frailty syndrome results from an aging-associated dysregulation of the complex biology of interacting systems which maintain a robust organism. Complex system biology is compromised. Theoretically, there is a loss for both reserves and resilience, and diminished ability to maintain homeostasis in the face of stresses. This dysregulation likely is the combined result of decreased function at multiple levels, including clinical symptoms and signs, physiological communication systems, and other functions. Frailty becomes manifest when physiological dysregulation reaches a critical threshold. So once it reaches a critical threshold, then we could actually see the manifestation of frailty. And it has recognizable causes at the level of both altered physiology and potentially altered genetic, cellular, and molecular processes. So we previously discussed primary, now we're going to discuss secondary frailty. So secondary frailty is inflammatory. As we said before, it's due to diseases, right? So inflammatory or wasting diseases independently predict frailty, potentially through the inflammation or their effect on cardiopulmonary function, immune diseases, and chronic cytomegalovirus infection. Secondly, frailty theoretically develops as a result of the core wasting process of these illnesses, perhaps precipitating an independent final common process that is frailty. So the interesting point here is, for example, data on HIV positive men indicate that HIV infection, even in the absence of clinical AIDS, is associated with rates of frailty-like presentation that would be found in HIV negative men who are 10 years older. So a patient who is, for example, 50 years old and has HIV without AIDS would show a manifestation of frailty-like presentation in someone who is 60 years old. Additionally, frailty in association with HIV predicts a lower response to therapy and a worse prognosis than AIDS alone. So that's like an evidence for the secondary frailty. Now for the assessment. Screening patients for the presence of the syndrome and consider who may benefit from the risk reduction as well as treatment. A clinical global impression of change in frailty has been validated. An approach for screening older adults for intervention trials has been published. So the presence of frailty can be assessed by several established methods. The approach used may differ depending on the setting and goal. However, the consensus is increasing that frailty should be understood as an entity distinct from disability, which is an outcome of frailty. And that's the important point. Disability is an outcome of frailty. It doesn't mean frailty itself. Here we have the preventing strategies for managing the prevailing strategies for managing frailty. So how are we going to manage frailty? First of all, we have a comprehensive geriatric assessment and management, which is designed to optimize outcomes for frail older adults, particularly to prevent the loss of independence. That's the important point. We have a frail patient, we don't want them to become dependent on other people. This team-based multidisciplinary approach has positive effects on polypharmacy, POLS, functional status, nursing home admission and mortality. Should be coupled with accurate screening for frailty and ongoing expert geriatric care. So what is the management plan for us? The focus of care should be on three things. Well, first of all, we have to exclude any modifiable precipitating causes of frailty. As we said, it could be secondary. There could be something that is treatable. So first of all, we're going to treat this. Second is improve the core manifestations of frailty, especially physical activity, strength, exercise tolerance, and nutrition. As we were going to learn later on, exercise tolerance is very important. It might be the most important point. Third is minimize the consequences of vulnerability, whether in terms of environmental risks, risk from low social support, or risk from stressors such as acute illness or injury. As we said, these patients are going to be very vulnerable to stressors, so we don't want them to be exposed to these stressors. The approaches that older adults use to adapt to age-related psychological losses of behavior can also be applied to frailty, to carefully choose the goals, optimize the abilities needed to reach these goals, compensate for diminished competencies by increasing their reliance on other functions or by replacement. Okay, so now we're going to discuss the prevention. So we want to diagnose it. We knew like the characteristics that we're going to diagnose frailty. We now want to prevent it. So first of all, we're going to avoid or modulate the stressors. So as we said, people who have frailty or are going to have frailty mainly are going to have like a vulnerability to stressors. So frail older adults are more vulnerable to immobility, hospitalization, surgery, extremes of heat and cold. Immobility is likely a trigger causing frailty to develop or worsen, as well as exacerbating the onset of adverse outcomes such as dependency. So that's why we want to avoid the stresses as much as we can. At the same time, given the association of depression with decreased activity, energy, and nutritional intake, as well as inflammation and worsened social isolation, depression may as well be a precipitant for frailty as well. Attention needs to be paid to minimizing these precipitators or the stress associated with them. So second of all, we have the pharmacological aspect of treatment. So mainly, we don't have any evidence that there's a pharmacological like treatment or something that could prevent frailty. It has not been demonstrated that the replacement of deficiency of any one hormone can prevent or ameliorate frailty, which is logical because, as we said, the combined effect of deficits in multiple physiological systems appear to predict the frailty much more strongly than any one deficit. So there is no pharmacological like treatment for it. Geriatric assessment and management is reported to reduce serious adverse medication events and suboptimal prescribing in frail older adults who may be at higher risk of these adverse events or of polypharmacy. Third, we have the behavior approaches. So as you can see it highlighted, this might be the most important point. Resistance or strengthening exercise is effective in increasing muscle mass, strength, and walking speed in frail older adults. So if you want to prevent the frailty to progress more, or even to prevent frailty, we need to advise these patients to have more like resistance or strengthening exercise. And there are other forms of exercise as well, including like stretching, tai chi, aerobic exercise are also helpful. Also, prehabilitation may be beneficial for frail older adults to prevent decline in physical function. Exercise has notably beneficial physiological effects on sarcopenia, inflammation, and other systems. As we said before, exercise is very important with these patients. And at the same time, we want to prevent nutritional inadequacy. But the interesting point is nutritional supplementation appears to be effective only when added to resistance exercise, at least in nursing home patients. So we want in these patients to do the exercise as well as to ensure that there is nutritional adequacy in these patients. So as you can see here, it can show you like that exercise has a notable beneficial physiological effect on sarcopenia, inflammation, and other systems associated with frailty. As you can see here, the decrease in physical activity can have an effect on inflammation, on undernutrition, and so on. Okay, so frailty and failure to thrive. Failure to thrive was historically a diagnosis applied to an older patient with non-specific symptoms that have no apparent cause. Some believe the term should be abandoned because it does not assist in thoughtful evaluation. Some argue that a term initially used to describe delayed development in children is pejorative for when applied to older adults. Conceptually, there may well be an overlap between the concept of failure to thrive and very severe or end-stage frailty. So this is why we're going to talk now about palliative care, because we said they're a very severe form of frailty. There is evidence that frailty has its own pattern of functional decline at the end of life, involving substantial disability and dependency in the final years of life. Severe frailty with a score of 4 to 5 and metabolic abnormalities of low cholesterol and albumin is associated with particularly high short-term mortality rates in frail older adults. Clinical case series suggest a poor response to treatment in these patients, and that's why we might need to go and do like palliative approaches in these patients. Okay, so we finished the presentation. We're now going to summarize, and then we're going to go to cases. So don't worry, we only have a few minutes left. So to summarize everything, frailty appears to be a clinical syndrome of dysregulated energetics with definable clinical manifestations, as we said before, 3 out of 5, that become apparent when physiological dysregulation reaches a critical threshold and with recognizable causes at the level of both altered physiology and a potentially altered genetic, cellular, and molecular processes. A validated frailty syndrome is manifested when multiple components are present: weakness, low energy or exhaustion, slowed walking speed, low physical activity, and weight loss. Frailty identifies patients at high risk of adverse clinical outcomes, including falls, disability, and dependency and mortality. Frailty develops along a continuum of severity, likely including a latent phase that is not clinically apparent in the absence of stressors. Early stages likely most responsive to intervention, and that's why we need to get to diagnose it. And a late end stage that indicates high risk of short-term mortality, and this is when we might need to use the palliative care. The most effective preventive approach appears to be maintaining muscle mass and strength through resistance exercise. Okay, so this is the first case. I would give you a few minutes to try and read it, and then we're going to see the option. Okay, now we're going to see the options. Choose the best one in your opinion. I can see it in the chat once you answer. Sure. Do you want me to go to the? Okay. So you want to see the case once more? 1 minute. Here you go. Someone wanted to see the case once more? If you want me to read the case out loud, just tell me so. Okay. Ready to see the answer? Okay, so the answer is C, beginner resistance training exercise. As we said, in these patients, that the most important point is resistance training exercise and as well nutrition, okay? So why isn't it like A or B? Because as we said, there is no evidence that supplements or drugs or anything are going to be helpful in preventing or even treating frailty, okay? And as for the C, encourage increased social interaction. So social isolation could be like contributing to functional decline, but intervention to enhance social interaction has not been shown to improve frailty at all, okay? And for the palliative care approach, as we said before, it's for the end stage, the people who are resistant to treatment. But in this patient, we are just starting to treat. So we're not going to use palliative care, okay? So now for the second one, I would give you a few minutes as well to read it. I think everyone like replied right for the first case, so good job, everyone. Let me know once you have read it, so I can show you the options. Okay, and then we can people, or you can see the options. You can answer in the chat. Okay, this seems to be a more confusing case, and I can totally understand. Okay. Okay, so the answer is death. Okay. So it might be surprising. So although this previously active and healthy man did not show signs of clinical frailty before hospitalization, he had decreased physical reserves after the acute stressors, which was the hospitalization for the prostate surgery, right? Frailty placed him at an increased risk, as we said before, for poor outcomes, which is for increased mortality in this patient, right? We said there's an increased mortality and decreased function and falls and hospitalization. So what are we more concerned of? That in the next year, there might be an increased risk of death. Poor health outcomes in individuals with frailty have been demonstrated in popular studies from associations, okay? And then frailty have been the most important point. Why is like B and C and D and so on? Why is it not right? Because the frailty has not been associated with subsequent development of any specific disease or even for the patient to be placed in a nursing home. That's why the most concerning point is it might be there's an increased risk of death in this patient. Okay, I know this is a very confusing case. And now for the last one, I'll give you a few minutes as well to read it. Now for the options. Answer in the chat once more. This is the last one, don't worry. Okay, great job, everyone. I think everyone got it right. Okay, so this is no medication. Okay, so why is it no medication? Because no supplement or medication has been proved to increase function in older men with sarcopenia, as we mentioned before. There is no evidence for it. And especially that there's no evidence without significant adverse effects. That's the most important point. We're talking about elderly patients. So there's an increased risk of adverse effects. And even for the vitamin D supplements are associated with fewer falls in frail older adults with vitamin D insufficiency specifically, but its role in preventing sarcopenia is not proven until now. It's not known. So for now, it's no medication. Okay. So thank you so much. This is for acknowledgements, and thank you so much for listening to the presentation, and I hope you learned from it. Thank you so much. If anyone have any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nada. That was a really great presentation. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Nada?
Could you please show us the slide 25 again? I want to take a screenshot because it summarized the most of the.
Sure, I'm sorry. 25. There you go. Please take a screenshot if you want.
Thank you very much. I used to have a question, so when you just showed the slide, I realized I found the answer in this.
Okay, sure.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you all for listening. I hope you learned.
Thank you so much for a great presentation, Dr. Nada. And I want just to highlight that the first one, and this slide, like on the upper left corner, the physical activity. So most of the patients, when they are admitted to the hospital, they keep them in bed, and that's that's a wrong way to take care of patients unless they are needing for their chest. Most of the time, we want them to be active and out of bed. So more and more, we will see physical therapy assessing the patient as soon as they are admitted to the hospital. They want them to walk around to minimize the risk of less physical activity. One thing you need to know is when the patient lay in bed for a week, they will lose muscle. And if they do that, their strength will go down. And to gain this, they need a few weeks, like maybe 2 or 3 weeks to get back to their strength back. So they will need subacute rehab or some rehabilitation. So the trend nowadays is to ask or encourage patients to get out of bed as soon as they can, and not to get them in bed rest. So just to keep in mind something. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nada.
Great presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Nader, for that information. And thank you so much, Dr. Nada, for your great presentation. Our next topic, it's called Student T-Test, Excel and SPSS Demo. It'll be presented by Dr. Minnu. So whenever you're ready, Doctor, please share your screen. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Minnu. We can hear you perfectly.
Yeah, okay. Okay, you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. First of all, before going into the topic, I just want to say thank you, Dr. Nade, for giving me an opportunity to present this topic, as well as Dr. Emma, she supported me, because in this topic, the SPSS was a very new thing for me. So she just supported me. You go for it, you'll be able to do it. So thank you so much for that. So I'm Dr. Minnu. I'm a medical graduate from India. I'm planning to apply for the residency this year. So that's my intro. I'm going to the topic. So this is like student t-test, and I'm going to show a demo kind of how to do it in like Excel and SPSS. These two are the tools for like used to calculate the t value and to do this test. SPSS is like a statistical package for social sciences. It's somewhat similar to the Excel itself. So I'll just give an outline of the student t-test before going into the demo so that everyone will get a fresh idea about it. So yeah. So the definition, the t-test, it's also known as a student t-test, is used to determine the significance of the difference between the means of two sets of data like A and B. So we generally ask the question, like, is the mean of the sample A significantly different from mean of the sample B? We are just like comparing kind of. Next, the characteristics. T-test depends on the properties of a normal distribution curve. We all know the bell-shaped curve, the normal distribution curve. So it follows that. The null hypothesis states that the means of the samples A and B are the same. And alternate hypothesis states that the means of samples A and B are different. Next, I'm going to give an idea about like what is one-tailed test and two-tailed test. So this helps when we calculate it in the Excel and SPSS. So in one-tailed test, the alternative hypothesis is that the mean of a particular nominated sample, like for example, let it be A, okay? It will be greater than the mean of the other sample. So in short, we can say like, we are keeping a reference, like maybe for example, like we keep A as a reference and say like B is greater than A, like that. So the critical value of T is lower in one-tailed test. Next is a two-tailed test. Here they don't have a reference, like we are just taking two groups and we are like comparing kind of. So in two-tailed test, the alternative hypothesis is that means of the two samples A and B are nearly different. Two-tailed test is more stringent and so it's like recommended. Next is like the restrictions and cautions while doing this t-test. The t-test assumes that the data are measured at an interval or a ratio level. Data should be derived from normally distributed populations. Counts data may not be normally distributed, so count data should be transformed logarithmically before performing the t-test. So if they are not normally distributed, we have to like transform it into like, should be transformed logarithmically before doing the t-test. Proportions and percentages data need to be Artin transform. Like Artin transform means like changing to the normal distribution using the formula. These are the different types of t-test. First one is the independent sample t-test. They compare the means for the two groups. Okay, it's like an independent thing. And paired sample t-test is also known as like the dependent samples. So compares the means from the same group at different times, for example, like 1 year apart or like that. We run a t-test on dependent samples. So these are like dependent ones. Two tests on the same person before or after training, kind of. One sample t-test is the test. It tests the means of a single group against a non-mean. There will be a non-mean, and against that we do this. We test the means. This is like the formula to normally calculate the t-score. So it is like epsilon d by n divided by the root of epsilon d the whole square minus epsilon d whole square by n. N is the sample size divided by n minus 1 into n the whole root. So this is a formula we generally use to calculate t-score. So epsilon d is a sum of x minus y. For example, I'll show you a scenario. This is a scenario, okay. For example, we can say these are the subjects like 1 to 11, and let's take like this person scored in step 1 like this mark, like, and just give me an example. And this is the step 2 score. So x minus y means we find the difference between this. That is the epsilon d here, okay. And x minus y the whole square is this, and that is the d square here. So we apply this data into this formula and calculate the t-value. Hope it's clear. This is how they do. And they calculated the t-value like this. And the calculated t-value was like minus 2.74 if we apply it like that. So find t-value in the t-table using the degrees of freedom. Degrees of freedom is calculated using like the formula n minus 1. The sample, for example, if it is 11, the sample size, 11 minus 1 is 10 in the scenario, okay? And using the t-table is like our logarithm table, there is a table, t-table, and using the degrees of freedom, we get a already calculated value, 2.28 from that, okay? So this is a value which calculated using the formula, and this is a t-table value, 2.228. So we can say like 2.74 is more than 2.228, and with the alpha value like 0.05. And we found like P is less than 0.05. When P value is, we all know it like P value when it is less than 0.05, we reject the null hypothesis. And P value more than 0.05, we keep the null hypothesis like that. So in this scenario, which I said, here P value was like less than 0.05. So we reject the null hypothesis. Null hypothesis is statistically significant. Okay. I'm now going into the tool, how to demonstrate this. These two tools we are discussing today. Excel, many of them may know it. Like I'm just going to demo it. And SPSS is a statistical package for the social sciences. It's also a tool used in the statistics. Yeah, now I'll show the Excel. Can you see my Excel screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
So I just pre-prepared tables for like paired t-test and unpaired t-test. So the paired t-test, I'm trying to say, consider like the temperature taken of a person, like during morning time as well as evening time. It was like this, like 10 subjects were there, 10 places were there. So how we calculate is that there is a, you can see the auto sum at the right hand side, right? So if we pull it down, you can see more functions. And in that, you can select category, out of which statistical. Okay, we took the auto sum, then statistical category. In that, t-test is, yeah, we pull t-test there. Okay, and then comes array 1, array 2, tails and type. So array 1, we take this morning temperatures. So it was applied over there. Array 2, we take the evening temperatures. And then tail. Tail means like we said, like one tail distribution, two tail distribution. So one tail is we are keeping a reference and comparing the other. Here we are not doing that. So it is two tails. So we put 2. And the type we can see, type is like paired is equal to, we give a number 1, and unpaired we say like 2 and 3. So ours is like presently we are going to calculate the paired t-test. So we put 1 for that. Okay. And you can see the value came like 0.029457, like that. Okay. Yes, sorry. Yeah. This is the value. Okay. So that is a paired t-test p-value for this scenario, like the temperature thing. Okay. And since the p-value is like less than 0.05, it is like significant. Okay. The same way, we are going to calculate for unpaired t-test. Okay. The same way we'll pull the auto sum and then more functions. We pull down the statistical in the category and then we'll take the t-test. And then we do, here we are comparing the heights between like boys and girls, okay, but we don't have a reference kind of. So first the array 1, that is the boys. And then second is the array 2, that's the girls. And tailed is like blue tail, it's not like a reference is there. And the type is, we said like unpaired, we have like 2 or 3. 2 with equal variance and 3 with unequal variance. So we are not very sure about whether it is the difference between that. We just generally put 3 unequal variance and then press OK. So we found the p-value for this unpaired for this height between boys and girls as 0.024365. So we can say it's like less than, p-value is less than 0.05. That is a significant, it's significant, it's a significant difference. So that's about the demo in like Excel, how to find the t-test, t-score kind of. Okay, then now I'm going to the SPSS. Let's see. SPSS is, you can see, this is a screen for SPSS. It's kind of a tool now handled by IBM. So here we are going to calculate the unpaired one first. And this is like, we are going to compare the means of like the heights in different genders. Okay. So this is the data, I mean, that data table, that data you can see. We can look at the variable view. So how we will give the value is that we take the page and then we apply the gender first, like whatever we are planning to give, like depending upon the scenario. And in the gender, you can see here the values comes, and I'm giving 0 value for like the males and 1 value for the females. Okay. And so if you apply like that, you can see in the data value, like 0 shows the males and 1 shows the females, and we give them the height. Okay, height is like a numerical, I mean, it's a numerical value. And you can add like the measurement, whether it is like a scale, ordinal or nominal kind of. Since gender is nominal, I just added nominal. And height is a measurement, it's a scale. So we apply that. Okay. Then coming to the data, you can see the different heights are applied. And then how we will calculate this unpaired t-test value. Yeah. So we take analyze, and then we compare the means and proportions. In that, we calculate the independent sample t-test. Okay. And in this, we apply the test variable gender, and the height is like the dependent, like the measurement. So we add it to the grouping variable. Okay. Sorry, 1 second. sorry, test variable is the height and gender is the grouping variable, the grouping variable, yeah. And then we can add the options like which confidence interval percentage is being used. Like it is 95% I'm using. So we put continue and then press, okay, 1 second. 1 second, okay. Didn't come up. Is it not coming? Sorry, 1 second. Once again, it's not working. Nice. Yes. I don't know why is it not coming. One second, let me just see. Let me see for the pair t-test, okay? So the same way I applied for the, this is like the subjects, and we are considering the systolic blood pressure control with a drug, new drug, like for an untreated patient, it was the blood pressure over this line, and this was for the treated patients. And I'm just trying to analyze the, this is like pair t-test. Yeah, pair t-test. Like the same way we took the options, 95%, continue, and put OK. Yeah, I don't know why it didn't work for the unpaired. Let me see after this, okay? Hope you guys are following me. Okay.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So this is a pair t-test, and like when we apply it, we'll get a chart like this, and they are saying the untreated mean is 155.1, and treated people like the mean is 143.80. They give well explained like the standard deviation, the standard error, and you can see the paired sample test, and the mean is like 11.3, standard deviation, standard error of mean, and they give idea about like 95% confidence interval of the difference lower and the upper limit, the t value, and the degree of freedom, because we calculated using the 10 samples, right? I mean, 10 subjects. So degree of freedom is like n-1, 9. And this is a one-sided p. And the two-sided p is 0.019. So this is how they give you the idea about like the p-value. And it is like, yeah, the paired sample effect size. Yeah. So from this, we can say like, they give idea about the p-values, like when p-value is less than 0.05, like we can say it's like significant differences. Okay, so here it is like less, so there is a difference. Okay, so the same way, let me once more try with the unpaired one. I don't know, somewhere it went wrong. Independent sample t-test. This variable. Gender variable. Yeah, okay. So what happened was that the gender I gave like the number 0 and 1, right? So 0 for the males and the 1 for the females. So they asked me to define the groups. I didn't give that earlier. So we gave the number like 0, like group 1 is 0 and group 2 is 1. Continue and then plus okay. It came and went. Yeah, that's it. So this is like the t-test we calculated for the height for the males and the females. The same way as we saw in like the unpaired, like this is a pair. Sorry, this is an unpaired one. Yeah. So in this, you can see they give like the mean, the standard deviation, standard error mean, and this is a unpaired independent sample test, and in which they give like the p-values, the mean difference, standard error difference, the 95% confidence interval of the difference, lower and the upper limit. So from the p-value, like the same way as I said, like p-value less than 0.05, like we can say like there is significant difference kind of. So that's how we calculate it. So yeah, that's about my presentation. And if you have any doubts regarding, you can ask me. As of my knowledge, I will like tell you like how to do, or like, is there anything I can help with?
Thank you so much, Dr. Minnu. That was great. Does
I don't
anyone
know
have
how
any
it was
questions?
for every one of you, because SPSS was a very new thing for me. So there might be something I missed. So if anything you feel like to correct me, you can just tell me.
This great presentation as well. Thank you so much. This is very clear and to the point, and hopefully people will follow through. So basically, you have your data and then you compare them using either Excel or SPSS. The idea is you're comparing two groups, or the same group but in 2 time points. So yeah, thank you so much. This is really simplified and very clear and to the point. Thanks for doing the demo and information before that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Naren, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Minnu. That was a great presentation. Coming up next, we were supposed to have mobile apps for older adults. Unfortunately, this doctor is not available. Something happened, he wasn't able to present. But we have our last topic. It's going to be presented by Dr. Farah. It's the appropriate conferences and annual meetings in geriatrics and other specialties. So Dr. Farah, whenever you're ready.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Share my screen. Okay, can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen now.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Farah, and I'm going to be presenting some conferences and annual meetings that are held in the US. I'm going to start with the first annual meeting, that is the American Geriatric Society annual meeting. This annual meeting is a great opportunity for physicians that are interested in geriatrics to build connections, and for those working on any geriatrics related paper to present in. It's a 3-day-long conference. It's designed to provide attendees with a comprehensive educational experience covering a broad range of geriatrics-related subjects such as chronic disease management, behavioral health, care transitions, palliative and hospice care, and emerging technologies, among others. The call of abstract submission has already started, and the deadline is in the 30th of June. The abstract submission fee is around $40, and you will be getting a decision of acceptance of the paper by September. And then you'll start preparing for the annual conference, which will be held in May 9th to May 11th, 2024. The meeting is going to be virtual or in person. The next annual meeting is the annual meeting of post-acute and long-term care. This society is open to receiving proposals regarding all relevant topics related to post-acute and long-term care and medical direction. These proposals could be contributed by professionals from numerous disciplines, such as medical directors, attending physicians, physician assistants, nurse practitioners, nurses, administrators, practice managers, consultant pharmacists, dietitians, mental health professionals, social workers, or case managers, rehabilitation professionals, as well as residents, students, and all other post-acute and long-term care practitioners. Also, for this annual meeting, the call for submission has already started, and the deadline is on the 19th of July. Again, the review will start by the review of your abstract will start by August, and you'll get an acceptance by September if your paper was accepted. And the conference is going to be held on March 9th, 2024. This is an in-person annual meeting, and it will be held in San Antonio, Texas. The next annual meeting is the North American Primary Care Research Group. This is going to be their 51st annual meeting. North American Primary Care Research Group is a prominent interdisciplinary volunteer association that leads the way in primary care research. The annual conference showcases the latest advancements in healthcare research across various areas, including clinical research, health equity, behavioral health, pediatrics, healthcare delivery and policy, among other topics that are essential for primary care. The North American Primary Care Research Group Conference offers a unique opportunity to meet and connect with other professionals in the healthcare research field, particularly for family physicians. It's an excellent forum for those interested in family medicine to expand their network and explore collaboration opportunities with peers who share a passion for primary care as well. Again, their call for abstract has already started. Students, residents, and fellows can all participate. You can submit a proposal of an incomplete paper or a complete paper. And if your paper gets accepted, you get to publish it in Annals of Family Medicine, the journal. The submission deadline is on the 21st of July. The submission fee for per abstract is $20, and the conference is held in October 30th to November 30th, 2023 in California. It is in person. There is the American Academy of Neurology, and this is going to be their 76th annual meeting. It is going to be held on April 13th to 18th. The call of abstract has not yet been opened. It's expected to open in the fall, so anticipated. The participation in this annual meeting can be in person or virtual. This is going to be a slide of for all to participate in and give their feedbacks, especially our mentors, because I actually don't have a prior experience regarding this. But this is a website that I found, and I actually found a lot of similar websites that offer you alerts on upcoming conferences. Basically, this is the website. I'm going to share it. Can you all see it? Wait.
Yes, we can see it.
And no, this is not the one. One second. This is it. This is basically a website that you get to add the topic of interest that you're interested in. For example, I have here.
Dr. Farah, please unshare and then share so that we can see the website.
Okay, it's not you can't see it.
We still see your PowerPoint.
Oh, okay. Can you now see it? It's called the International Conference Alert.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So it's basically a website that allows you to select a topic of interest. For example, here we have gerontology. I'm going to pick gerontology. And then you get to select the country you're interested in. I'm going to pick the US. And you get to select the month you're interested in presenting in. And I'm going to pick December. And this is the list. It generates a list of upcoming conferences in the time that I have picked. I'm going to pick this one, International Conference on Geriatrics and Frailty. Then you get to go visit their website. And it gives you a brief introduction on the conference and the timeline and the guideline for submission. What I figured is those conferences are not quite popular, but they are indexed. They are supported by PubMed, ORCID, Google Scholar, Scopes, and Postgraph, ResearchGate. So I thought this might be helpful, and that's why I shared it. Please give me your feedback.
Thank you so much, Dr. Farah, for this also excellent presentation and review of the conferences. And thanks for adding this last one tool. It's really helpful. So people can identify which conference they want to target. And as you mentioned, you can look at the submission guidelines and see what the themes, what the area they want you to look at and present. Sometimes they focus on certain areas, sometimes they are open. So if you target the area that they have some interest in, then you will have a bigger chance to get accepted. Excellent.
Thank you so much, Dr. Farah. I saw that Dr. Nada shared it on the chat. She shared the link. So if anyone wants to access it, please click there. Thank you so much to Dr. Nada, Dr. Minnu, and Dr. Farah. Those were our three presenters. You guys all did an amazing job. Are there any questions before we do the projects update? Okay, if there's no question, we can do projects update. If anyone has an update on their research projects or any ideas for future projects, please feel free to share. Okay, I wanted to share something, Dr. Nader. I know last year with the pandemic, we had a webinar on like COVID-19. I'm thinking of doing a webinar, but I wanted to focus on long COVID and the symptoms of long COVID. I know that Yale University, they have a new program that's specifically meant to treat patients who have long COVID. So I was thinking within this webinar, just to talk about the effects, because with long COVID, there's certain symptoms that aren't necessarily seen on like different imaging or blood work. And so I wanted to conduct a webinar that explains the different symptoms and ways in which people can seek help, or different options that are available out there. I don't know what you think about that.
I think it's a great idea. In the past, I think some of the fellows here started to work on a project. I don't think the project has finished, or it was about long COVID. And the permit here and Dr. Lubaba was leading, but Lubaba already left and she joined some residency. So here, and think might be the best person to connect with and see if you can create a group and see what's the objective, identify certain things, and then we can plan ahead to do something like that. I think it's going to be useful. So it's a good idea.
Yeah, I was in the group with Dr. Mahir. We were focusing on the cardiopulmonary effects of long COVID. It is stagnant right now, so I'll connect with him, and then hopefully we can talk about like the other effects, right? So like the neurocognitive effects of long COVID and like all the other symptoms that are present, because it does present in any age, right? So I think some of the studies indicated that a lot of patients who were in their 20s and 30s also had a lot of debilitating symptoms. But I'll connect with Dr. Mahir. And if anyone is interested in the webinar as well, please reach out, and then we can plan for that in the upcoming weeks, and hopefully set up a flyer and present it just like we did last year, or just like the people did last year. Thank you so much, Dr. Nader.
No problem. And Dr. Farah sent a message, and the other maybe interested as well. So usually the webinar will be less people than the abstract is a cutoff. So people can talk. So we need 5 or 6 somewhere there. If we have a lot of people interested in the topic and they want to present, what we did in the past is we took the topic, but we divided into languages. So we presented the same topic, but in 2 different, one in English, one in Arabic. Maybe we can do in other languages as well. So if someone is interested in Spanish, we can do that. In whatever other Hindi, we'll do any other. So if there are a lot of people interested in the topic, and I see some.
Maybe we can even have like a potential to do it in both languages, because I know like Dr. Amal, she did her app in both English and Arabic, and so maybe we can do like a webinar here, and then maybe like do like an international one for people who are like outside of the States that can benefit as well. That would be interesting. My Arabic is not good, so I'll connect with whoever.
It's just to allow everyone to have a chance to participate and help spread the word. And the idea, as you mentioned, we don't need to focus only on the US. Some of the fellows here are from other countries that are located there in the Gulf or in Pakistan or somewhere. So they can help when we develop this webinar, so that they can help the community where they are in their own language. That might be a way to reach broader audience. Thank you.
Dr. Nader, do you know if they recorded any of the webinars that were conducted last year?
Good question, and I'm going to share the screen. So
Okay.
if you go to the TGRF, the TGRF Research Fellowship publication page, you will come to this web page. So we keep track of, I'm trying to keep track of all our work. So you will go over the next year, you'll find this is the statistics of how many abstracts so far we presented. We have a couple of accepted and will be presented soon. And then we have some papers, some conferences, authors, and that number is increasing, and the 3 webinars, and these are the numbers of graduated fellows and type of fellowship or fellows that join. The conferences, we mentioned some of them here in the last topic, but these are additional conferences. So Nafisa, for example, presented her work on one type of conference, and then NPRT, and we also participate with the Society for Internal Medicine. So these are divided into groups, like the one here in the mid area of the US. They have their annual meeting, so we can target them for any topics related to general medicine or internal medicine. And then we have the pain conference also, that's annual. We can target. There in California, there is this symposium done also annually regarding elder abuse and elder specific topics. So that was presented, and then we talked about like, I think also we have some conferences related to this. So if you look at our participating in conferences, we try to reach out to all these conferences, local, international, and national site as well. So if your question about the webinar, if you go all the way to the left, there is the webinars that we had in the past. So we did 3 of them. One of them is about the vaccination, and then 2 of them is same topic, vaccination and side effects on heart failure, but in different language, one in Arabic, one in English. So the number of people who participated is increased. So we can do the same. We can modify according to what long tail symptoms targeting what system, for example, or we can divide it by age group, for example. So there are different ways to multiply the same topic, but targeting different audiences. We have this recorded, so if you click on it, you will have the video, and you can review that. We have some of the paper presented also recorded virtually, so you can go over and look at the video and the abstract there, or the poster. The list of authors, the journal we participated in. So some of these posters can be converted into a published, as you mentioned, in the journal. For example, the American Primary Physician Conference, it will be listed as the annual of family medicine, this journal. So if you look at the archive, it will list all the content from this abstract. So last year, you can find it in the supplement. So last year, we presented and it's published this year. So you can look at, for example, you can find one of the abstracts that we presented, creating a virtual training. And we presented some abstract before that, a year before. So this is one example of when you present the topic in a conference, some of them will publish it into the actual material or the journal. So it can be listed as a reference for other people. I hope I answered your question. It's a long answer.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Nader.
You're welcome.
I'll definitely go back and go over the webinars and reach out to the fellows if I need any more direction, but I appreciate your help.
Sounds good. And if we want to get more ideas about what we can do, let's say we want to get a new project, one thing I found might be useful is to go to these conferences where they present it and they publish. So here, for example, the Journal of Family Medicine, they have their own list of posters that presented or abstract accepted. You can go by the year, and then they have areas where they focus on this cardiovascular, for example, or COVID, or education, for example, patient engagement, any area that you are interested in, let's say pain management. So you will find some published abstract or ideas. And what you can do is you can look at some of these and see if we can duplicate the data, because this might be collected before COVID and then they analyze it, and because of the time they just presented that. So it might be something done a few years ago. We can repeat it and then we can use the same topic, but we compare it to before and after COVID or latest update or something that you can modify the title, but you are targeting the same conference with the same topic, but with new data. So this is one way of getting new ideas about new projects. And there are different categories as I listed here. So whatever you're interested in, you can look at the category that you are interested, see what happened last year, the year before, and the year before. So you can get some ideas about what are they talking about or what the common theme in this topic. And you can select one of them and then modify it and see if you can come up with new data. If that makes sense.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Nader. That's really beneficial. Does anyone else have any project updates or anything they'd like to share?
I'd like to update you guys about our systematic review. So we've done a lot of search so far and retrieving of the relevant articles. Probably in a couple of days, we'll start the screening process and going more deeply into the articles. Someone has already been working on the introduction section and the methodology section. And I think we're going fairly well. Hopefully next week we'll update you again and we'll have made some more progress. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Nancy. Dr. Haidar or Hadir, sorry.
Assalamu alaikum. So I just had a question about the NAP CRG. I just saw that they are closing the submission on July 21. So I was interested in submitting something, but on the criteria, it said that it's for an already done research or an ongoing paper. But my question is, can we start something from scratch and submit it to it, or it has to be something that's already published or submitted to a certain journal?
No, as you mentioned, they have two options. Option number one is you participate with a project that's not completed. So let's say we have an idea about questionnaire submitted to international medical graduates that's struggling with COVID, for example, long COVID. So we are building the questionnaire, we get the IRB approval, but we did not get the data back, so we cannot distribute the questionnaire. So we are still in the process, but we have the idea. We have some progress in the idea. Let's say we finished the IRB approval. We are in the process of distributing and collecting the data. So we don't have data, we don't have another. We can submit that under the in progress category. If, let's say, by the end of December we finish, then for the next year, we can submit the same project, but now it's under the other criteria where we completed all the steps, collecting the data, analysis, and now we are ready to present it as a completed product. If that
Okay.
makes sense.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Go ahead, Bufayda.
Hello, Dr. Nader.
Hello.
Regarding the neurocognitive implications of COVID-19, the systematic review, we're already on the process of data collection. So we're hoping by the end of this month, we're going to be able to finish our manuscript and everything. And inshallah, like to participate in the upcoming, there is the Geriatric conference in Washington, I think. So we're hoping to participate in that one.
Sounds good. Excellent. Thank you so much for the update. Let me know if I can be of help.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the support.
Yeah, welcome. Any other updates or ideas or questions? So let's say you are a new, okay, go ahead, Farah.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're fine, Dr. Nader. I
So,
just wanted to say that I'm from the white team and subgroup B, and we want to start working on submitting an abstract for the conference, which is post-acute and long-term care medicine. It was sent, and I went through it. And one of the topics was about substance use disorder. We will be having our meeting next Wednesday to discuss it further, but it might be mainly about vaping. I don't see a lot of research talking about vapes, and there is a good link that it can be substance use disorder in the future, especially that it's been everywhere now. So we don't have much of an update now, but by next week, inshallah, we will be providing you with more details. That's it.
excellent. Excellent. That's a good option. And sometimes what we do is, if you have the data or if you are working on getting this, let's say, ideas and collecting all the information and starting to build your abstract, sometimes these topics might match different conferences, let's say the one you just mentioned, or in the future, they might also match the SPI, because SPI conferences have some substance abuse out there. So you can see how you can get two abstracts out of your data, one matching the themes of the conference and another way to present it into the side conference, for example. And we did that in the past.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Yeah,
I have a question, Dr. Nader.
So is it Ayman? Dr. Ayman or?
Hello, this is Osama. Do you hear me?
Osama, yeah, Dr. Osama, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So I have a question about if I have an idea to start up one article, do I need to like update you or the group which I am with, the red group, and then I choose members to work with me, or what? How can I start that?
Yeah. So for example, I'm gonna just go back to the website. So we have some abstracts in the past, let's say this calling for the screening tools in diagnostic dementia, for example. So if you have the same idea, but that was an abstract, you want to convert this to a manuscript, you want to publish as a paper. So you can do that by yourself. Some people are very good, they have time and they have the knowledge and the skills of how to do that. And they can know, or they know which journal they target. So they can do all the work by themselves. So if you know and you have the time, we have no problem. You can convert this into manuscript, submit it to the journal of, let's say, JAMA, and see. We can help you with the editing. We can help you with any other questions that you might have. The question will be is, we work in teams to minimize. Some people might not have a lot of experience or a lot of time in hand. So if you have some time, and you want to learn, or if you have some experience, but you need to learn more experience, then you can work together in teams. So you will say, hey, I want to convert this into an abstract, a manuscript. Who is interested in doing this with me? So we will open it to your team, or in general to any member in the program who has the time or some skills in publishing. So you will create that team. So because you came with the idea, then you will be able to be the leader for that project. If you don't want, or if you have extra activities and you don't have time to lead the project, you can assign, or someone else can lead the project. Basically, you just want to be leading the team as far as dividing the task. So to convert this into a manuscript, you go to the actual text, and then go for the introduction. You elaborate on that, what the impact of this, why it's important, and so forth. So you will assign this to maybe 2 of the fellows in your project team. Then they will go and get some references and see what other people did in the past in this area, and what's the update, and what's the question. So the aim of your manuscript, or the goal of this, what the gap that you want to cover, or why you want to get the reader read the rest of the topic. After that, you go in details about how we did that, the method and the data and whatever. Some of these data are minimized because it's an abstract, so you may need to contact me or the authors of this abstract to get the whole full data, and then see if there are other drafts or other information that you want to add. So you assign this task to another 2 or 3 fellows. So you divide the task of writing the whole manuscript into small pieces of tasks, and identify some of the groups who are interested and assign this task to them. By the end, you will have the team, every 2 or 3 will work on just one piece of the whole thing. And when they are finished, you have the whole project or the whole manuscript ready. Then everyone can read the whole thing and give you feedback as far as editing, what else. And then you can give it back to me or other mentors to look at how we can improve it if there's any room for improvement. When we are ready, then we identify a couple of journals, let's say JAMA or BMG, or the American Journal of the long term. So we have some target. We will see what exactly they want us to write the manuscript. Sometimes they have certain requirements for the references, like there are different types of how you add the references. This is the author name, the date of the year, or the author name, and then the year at the end, something like that. So after we are meeting all the criteria for submission, you will identify who is the author, that corresponding author, that's the person who will submit and then communicate with the journal. So the journal will look at the abstract. Either they will say, oh, we will review it, or we reject it. If they say we will review it, they're going to review the manuscript and give you a feedback. Either it needs a lot of changes, so you will work again with your team to make these changes and submit, or they may say you need such minor changes. So you will make the changes, edit it, finish it, and submit it back to them. Then they will publish it in their journal in the coming weeks or months. This is how it works. If you want to do the whole thing by yourself, that's well and good. If we encourage you to work in teams so that you can learn from others, and others will learn from working in teamwork. You will obtain different things. The publication itself, you will know how to do it, number 1. Number 2, if you are successful, you can put it in your resume. Number 3, if you are the leader, then you will put in your resume that you learned some leadership skills. If you are the team member, then you will say, I work in teams, and then it will help you during the interview process that you will be asked either about the topic, or you can explore, or you can explain, we work on this topic, my role was this, and I did this, and the topic was interesting, or whatever, we finished and we got accepted in this journal, something like that. So it's a long answer, but hopefully it will help.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Nader. That's enough.
Thank you, Dr. Sam. Anyone else?
Hello, Dr. Nader.
Hello.
Maya
How are
here.
you?
Good, good, Dr. Nader. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Hello, everyone. Dr. Nader, I have a question like any of our fellow have previous experience or going to apply this year for fellowship program. I need some guidance regarding fellowship application. So I want to connect with them. If any of from our research group, if anyone going to apply for fellowship like position in geriatric or infectious disease, I want to connect with them. Thank you.
No problem. So some of the fellows here, they did match to some of their fellowship. So if you want to chat or get in contact with them, I listed the document that lists their names, and you can use the app or you can use the WhatsApp to connect with them. So this is the link or the list of all the applicants that, all the fellows that accepted into either residency program or fellowship program. So you can try to get in contact with them. But again, if any of the fellows here is interested, is working to get into the fellowship in other places, then maybe they can help you. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Nader. I saw in the chat like box someone answered. Yeah, I will connect with Dr. Moner. I think yes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So how do you have questions?
Dr. Hadir, do you have a question? Your mic is open.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay. Are there any more questions, or does anyone else want to share anything? If not, thank you to the fellows who joined today. And thank you to the 3 presenters from the Yalla team. And thank you, Dr. Nader. And yeah, I'll pass it on to you, Dr. Nader. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ryan, for moderating this meeting, and thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot to all the presenters. You did a great job, and thank you, all the attendees. If you have questions, if you need anything, let me know. You can contact me via email, text me, or call me. I'll be happy to answer. And I wish you all the best, guys. Good luck and have a wonderful day or night. Bye-bye. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nader.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Nader.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Nader.
Thank you,
so
Dr.
much, Dr.
Nader.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Dr. Nader. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Nader. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nader.
You're welcome. Bye.